The 1960s, Birmingham, Alabama, home to civil unrest, and a movement that would progress our society forward. Within this movement would be a match of an unlikely pair, a bond created, trust molded, and respect made for a lifetime.
I've told people this before, I played for the right person.
In 1969, the head basketball coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide was just getting his seat warm in Tuscaloosa. Coach C.M. Newton had already proven himself in the college basketball landscape, having won a national championship as a player at the University of Kentucky under legendary Coach Rupp, and turning around a Transylvania team to the cusp of greatness. But it's what he did in his first years at Alabama that helped cement his legacy to this day.
He was the right person to do this. He was the right person to bring in the first African American to play any sport on scholarship at Alabama, and he was that person.
Also that year, just down the road in Birmingham, Alabama, a standout African American high school basketball player was lighting up the scoreboard, helping advance his team, A.H. Parker High, to the first ever all-black championship game in Alabama high school basketball history. Wendell Hudson caught the eye of Coach Newton. On an April day in 1969, C.M. Newton sat in the home of Wendell Hudson and asked him to become a part of the Crimson Tide basketball squad, making him the first ever African-American scholarship athlete for Alabama basketball.
When he came into my home to talk to me and my mother, and she was nervous as she can be and worried about me talking about going to the University of Alabama, and she said, well, how is this going to be for my son going to the University of Alabama? And his answer was, I don't know. He didn't make up a story that everything's going to be lovely and rosy and all that stuff. He said, I don't know. I'm not black, and I'm not going to be the first black athlete to go there, and I'm not going to be on the campus. He said, but what I would tell you, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to make sure he's treated right and treated fairly and taken care of. That's an honest answer.
For many, Hudson's recruitment by C.M. Newton meant changing times in an era plagued with violence and inequality. For those that knew C.M., it meant he was doing what he always did, recruiting the best talent and even better people.
Recruiting Wendell, really, there was no thought process into we're going to break the color barrier at the University of Alabama. It was how do we get the best players, and hopefully the homegrown players, to come to the University of Alabama to build a successful basketball program.
Even as an administrator, when he goes home to his alma mater, Kentucky, he's going to bring on the first African-American basketball coach there with Tubby Smith. And then he's also going to bring the first African-American female basketball coach with Bernadette Maddox. There are a lot of firsts here that allow people to get beyond the idea of race and just see them as people that can do things that we all look up to. It shows a level of courage, and it shows a level of empathy that had to be displayed. But when we look at the things that C.M. Newton did and the choices that he made, he furthered the progress of race relations in this country in so many ways.
And what some wish to be remembered by, C.M. Newton's legacy won't be measured in wins and losses. It will be measured in lives he impacted, the minds he mentored, and the pivotal role he played in a city, state, and nation moving forward as one.
When we're talking about role models, you can either be a part of the problem or you can be a part of the solution. People like C.M. Newton and people like Wendell Hudson were willing to sacrifice and do what it took to be a part of the solution. And that solution is ongoing in part because of the things that they were able to do.
He was a man that always looked to try to do the right things. He used to say, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. I just want people to remember that he was a man that cared. He cared deeply about people.
When people remember C.M. Newton, it's easy to look at the stats in the books and talk about his coaching and winning percentage and winning the SEC 3 years in a row and all that kind of stuff when he was here at Alabama. But I think the big thing, and I think the thing C.M. would want people to know, that he impacted the game of basketball, and he impacted young people's lives in a positive way. He changed basketball.
The CM Newton Classic brings more than some of the best on the court together. This classic brings together history, legends, and the remembrance of those who stood up and chose progress as a way to move us forward.
I hope this puts some light on what can be accomplished when your motives are pure. Doing things and making decisions because it's the right thing to do and not necessarily the popular thing to do.
I hope through having the CM Newton Classic that people can look at Alabama and look at the transformational role that this state has played in race relations. The CM Newton Classic is just a prime opportunity for us to not only focus on the greatness of the University of Alabama, but also focus on the progress that has been made throughout this state and throughout this nation, and sports has a lot to do with that.
We've still got a long way to go. I mean, there's still a lot of civil unrest. I think we've got to take this time to educate ourselves, to learn, to listen to one another, to love each other.
Today and always, remembering the legacy of CM Newton.